It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Monday, June 2nd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A beautiful day on the way. Sun, clouds, high 73. Tonight and overnight, mostly clear. Low 57. Even warmer for Tuesday. We like this. Sunshine, high 79. If you're walking out the door with us right now, it's 50 and clear in Spring Valley up in Rockland County. 49 and clear in Westfield over in New Jersey. And it's 53 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
A terror attack in Colorado ends with 6 hurt. Finally, some good news at Newark Airport. Wait, how much is my electric bill now? A New Jersey mall was ready for rowdy kids this weekend. It's a sad goodbye to 2 famed Catholic schools. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. Out to Colorado, a man with a makeshift flamethrower yelling "Free Palestine" hurled Molotov cocktails at a group of people who had assembled to raise attention for Israeli hostages in Gaza yesterday. 8 people were injured in this attack in Boulder, Colorado. The alleged flamethrower, his name is Muhammad Sabri Soliman. He apparently is an Egyptian national. We'll get into that in just a moment. Booked in the Boulder County Jail. The attack happened at the beginning of this march. Apparently, they do this weekly march of members of the Jewish community, I imagine others as well, to call attention to the hostages being held in Gaza. Here's the Boulder police chief at a press conference yesterday after the attack.
We're not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene.
Yeah, so now there's a back and forth between the local authorities and the FBI. FBI quick to call it a terror attack. Boulder police not ready to do that. The group is called Run for Their Lives, and they do these demonstrations on this one mall to remember the Israeli hostages held in Gaza. And that's when this, I guess I'll call him a lunatic, started firing Molotov cocktails, homemade ones, trying to burn these people during this attack yesterday.
This was a beautiful Sunday afternoon in downtown Boulder on Pearl Street, and this act is unacceptable.
Correspondent Tom Winter says that he was getting news of this targeted attack as it was coming in yesterday.
Apparently this person and perhaps another person may have uttered or yelled something at the scene that the FBI and local authorities believe is the reason why this is going to be investigated as an act of terrorism.
All right, so people at the scene, they say they heard the words "Free Palestine" from this individual.
It appears to show a significant portion of the incident as it happened. There's an individual that's taken into custody.
Now, it was such a beautiful day in Boulder that there were a lot of eyewitnesses.
I've been so surprised that this would have happened someplace like in Denver, but not so. I couldn't imagine seeing something like this.
Yeah, well, I hate to tell you, it happens everywhere now.
I saw they came down one side of the mall. I was sitting down here on the corner, actually, and they came down one side of the mall. They had signs of people that were evidently held hostage in other countries. I think I saw an Israeli flag and American flag.
Down in Washington, they were quick to react. Here's Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, who is Jewish.
It's a nightmare and profound shock to everybody. This appears to be another anti-Semitic violent attack, and there's just no justification for terrorism and violence in this way.
All right, so this Boulder Police Department is not as big as the NYPD or some big city police departments, so they've been a little slow to get the information out. But now they're updating this. So they're saying 8 victims in all, between 52 and 88 years old, hospitalized with varying injuries. As of late last night, and this could change, one of those people was in critical condition. It's 4 men, 4 women. New York Post reporting that the attacker is an Egyptian national who's the one that's accused of blasting this group with homemade flamethrowers as they marched in this solidarity walk yesterday afternoon. He apparently originally entered the country through Los Angeles International Airport in 2022 and had overstayed his visa, which had expired a year ago in February. So, of course, there's more information coming into what is another attack. Of course, we had that attack about 2 weeks ago, where they murdered two members of the Israeli embassy outside the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. And here we go, another attack, this one in Boulder, Colorado. Of course, as more information comes in on this latest attack, we will pass them on to you. Let's bring it back home. 5:05, two Queens men recovering from knife wounds today after what police and neighbors are calling a violent lovers' quarrel.
Police say the men, aged 24 and 27, were arguing in their apartment early Saturday when one pulled a knife. Both were stabbed and slashed as they fought over the blade, staining the walls with blood as they made their way into a hall. A neighbor called 911. Both men were hospitalized, one with critical neck injuries. The Daily News reports criminal charges are pending. I'm Larry Kofsky, NBC News Radio.
Everybody's sending me this story over the weekend. You see, this 2-year-old boy is safe after taking a ride on the luggage conveyor belt at Newark Airport.
The New York Daily News reports the toddler's mother was at the JetBlue counter trying to rebook a flight when the boy walked behind a kiosk used by departing passengers to drop off checked bags. The toddler then stepped onto the conveyor belt that moves bags throughout the terminal and was whisked away behind a wall. Two Port Authority cops jumped onto the belt and about 4 minutes later grabbed the child who was about to go through the luggage x-ray machine in the baggage room on the lower level. The boy wasn't hurt, but EMS was called as a precaution. I'm Lisa Salvati.
Yeah, as a parent, you're like, oh, that easily could have been my kid. Thank God the kid is just doing just fine. 5:06. Over to Arkansas. You've been following this story. This manhunt still continues for this man known as the Devil in the Ozarks. He's a former Arkansas police chief. His name is Grant Hardin. He escaped from prison in Arkansas. It was a week ago Sunday, and they can't find this guy, and he's a dangerous dude.
You know, one of the challenges that we have for this area is it is very, as you can see, it's very hilly, it's very rocky. There's a lot of places where it's very narrow to get in and it's very narrow to get out.
Yes, so the issue is apparently he could be hiding in some caves, some terrain there. As you heard, is difficult. The FBI offering $10,000 for anybody that gives them information that leads to an arrest of Hardin.
You know, there's a lot of caves around here. There's a lot of hills, and so understanding that he may have that sort of familiarity provides a challenge.
And he was the subject, maybe you saw this documentary, it was called Devil in the Ozarks, wanted for rape, murder. I mean, this is a bad news guy. So far, no sign of that 56-year-old as of this morning. WABC News Time 5:09. Sunday marked the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season.
Forecasters say there are on average 14 named storms in the 6-month period beginning June 1st. 3 of them usually major hurricanes. This year, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says it expects between 13 and 19 named storms, and that up to 10 of them could become hurricanes. They expect at least 3 of them to become major hurricanes, with winds topping 110 miles an hour. I'm Scott Carr in Washington.
Down to D.C., so will Jill Biden be forced to testify to Congress about the mental state of her husband while he was in the White House? President Trump talking about this over the weekend. He was asked if he thought it was a good idea to bring the former First Lady before Congress.
Well, I hate the concept of it. It's the wife of a man who was going through a lot of problems.
But the president says the Bidens have to do what's right. Trump is convinced, as many others are, that Biden's staff was really in charge. And while he was in office, and maybe even for the last 2 years.
I knew Joe Biden. Joe Biden was in favor of opening up borders, letting 21 million people into this from prisons and mental institutions and gang members.
And, of course, lots of talk about this auto pen and signing legislation. Well, maybe the president wasn't aware of what was going on.
I think the auto pen is going to become one of the great scandals of all time because you have somebody operating it or a number of people operating.
And then also over the weekend, former President Joe Biden says there's optimism related to his prostate cancer diagnosis. Speaking to reporters at an event in Delaware, he said the expectation is he's going to be able to beat this.
Well, the prognosis is good. We're working on everything. It's moving along. So I feel good.
The former president says he started treatment. He joked that he's mentally incompetent and can't walk, as President Trump and others have questioned whether he was fit to serve in office. Now, at this event over the weekend, he sounded just fine.
Well, we're all optimistic about the diagnosis. Matter of fact, one of the leading surgeons in the world is working with me. And he diagnosed with the same exact thing 32 years ago. He's alive and well and doing very well.
Yeah, all right. So let's hope for the best in terms of that with the president. 5/11, the Trump administration releasing a list of targeted sanctuary cities and countries across the nation.
The list has about 600 cities and counties from places like New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Seattle. Sanctuary cities have limits on asking residents about their immigration status and will not help federal officials with immigration enforcement. The administration has called for withholding federal funds from sanctuary cities, leading to litigation from cities and states. Homeland Security says they will notify each city and county they are not in compliance and will send out updates as the federal enforcement rolls out. I'm Mark Mayfield.
WABC News Time 512. White House says a trade deal with China is coming. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett, taken to the news shows yesterday, says the status of the trade negotiations are good, though he didn't give us a whole lot of detail.
I expected that we were going to probably see one perhaps as early as last week. And I think that one of the things that's happened is that the trade team has been focused 100% like a laser beam on the China matter.
Now, Hassett expects President Trump will update the tariff plan this week. The president accusing China of violating its trade deal and announced that he was doubling steel and aluminum tariffs. He did this at a press conference over the weekend. We'll get to that in just a moment.
The presidents, we expect, will discuss the matter this week. Once that thing's resolved, then we're going to take deals into the Oval that Jameson Greer and Howard Lutnick have negotiated.
Now, the president announcing he was going to raise tariffs on steel imported into the U.S. He did so in Pittsburgh at a rally Friday where he was announcing that the Japan-based company Nippon Steel would be allowed to invest in U.S. steel, but then went after anybody else.
We are going to be imposing a 25% increase. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel into the United States of America, which will even further secure the steel industry in the United States. Nobody's going to get around that.
Can you imagine that news would go over well in a place like Pittsburgh, then the president praising American steel.
Strong steel industry is not just a matter of dignity or prosperity and pride. It's above all a matter of national security, and it is. You're going to see some amazing things here. That's why I fought for the American steel worker like no president has ever fought before. That's why I won your votes like no president has ever won before.
Let's go back down to Washington, where House Speaker Mike Johnson over the weekend saying the White House spending bill would actually strengthen Medicaid.
There are no Medicaid cuts in the big, beautiful bill. We're not cutting Medicaid. What we're doing is strengthening the program. We're reducing fraud, waste, and abuse.
Johnson was on Meet the Press yesterday. He said it will cut the deficit by over $1 trillion over 10 years. The Senate is debating the measure where Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes.
I sent a long text message to my good friend Elon Musk after he made those comments the other day to explain this is not a spending bill. This is a reconciliation package. They're assuming a growth level of 1.8% over the next 10 years. Never in U.S. history has the U.S. economy sustained less than 2% economic growth over a 10-year period. The reason we call it the Big Beautiful Bill is because it is a tremendous pro-growth package entwined in this legislation that is going to make everybody's incomes go up. There's going to be more job opportunity.
You know, you may not be surprised here. Democrats don't agree. And Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, he took to the news shows over the weekend to say that the Big Beautiful Bill will kill parts of Medicaid for Americans.
When you lose your health care, you are much more at risk of early death.
Murphy says he fears rural communities will suffer the most if this bill is signed into law.
When rural hospitals close because of this bill, when drug treatment clinics close in Iowa and rural America because of this bill, more people will die at a younger age.
All right. I don't know whether it clears the Senate or not. No idea right now. 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Monday. Good morning, Justin Ellen.
Happy Monday. Good morning to you, Noam Laden. Start here. Saturday night at the Garden. Somber mood for New York this year. The Knicks season came to an end in the form of a 125-108 loss to the Indiana Pacers in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, giving Indiana the 4-2 series win and a ticket to the finals for the first time since 2000 for Indiana. It's just the second time in franchise history that they'll play for the championship. Pascal Siakam won the Larry Bird Trophy as the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. OG Anunoby led the Knicks with 24 points. Karl Anthony Towns had 22 points and 14 rebounds, while Jalen Brunson added 19 points as the Pacers' relentless ball pressure forced New York into 17 turnovers. And the Knicks, they're headed home again, courtesy of the Pacers. New York still hasn't played in the finals since 1999. Indiana will meet the Oklahoma City Thunder there, with the series set to begin Thursday night in OKC.
This is like the NBA's worst nightmare. I mean, nobody could care less about an Indiana-OKC final.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a basketball purist, nobody's watching.
Yeah, and OKC is really quite the wagon. So, Indiana's going to have their hands full.
But these are the smallest markets in basketball. I think they might even be the two smallest markets in basketball. I mean, so there's no audience for this. They were praying that the Knicks would come back. That didn't happen.
Yeah. I guess if you're the NBA, right, you're kind of hoping.
Terrible.
You're hoping at least you get one big market in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
But, in terms of a prediction, no, I see OKC taking care of this thing in 5 games, probably something like that. But it is the finals, so it could, you never know. It could be more competitive than one might think. We'll see. Starting on Thursday night. No, out in Queens on the Diamond, the Mets beat the Colorado Rockies 5-3 at home yesterday to complete the 3-game series sweep of the MLB's worst. Clay Holmes registered the win for New York, throwing 7 innings of 3-hit ball, surrendering 3 runs, and punching out 3 Rockies along the way. Francisco Lindor launched his 13th homer of the season in the form of a 5th-inning solo shot after Pete Alonso sent his 12th of the year into the seats with a solo shot in the 4th, all before Juan Soto hit his 2nd dinger in as many days, an 8th-inning solo shot that sealed the win for the Mets. Up next for New York, they'll travel west to meet the Dodgers in Los Angeles tonight for the opener of a 4-game series. Paul Blackburn will get the start in what will be a 10:10 p.m. first pitch from L.A. Speaking of those Dodgers, the Yankees salvaged their series finale against L.A. last night, 7-3 win to avoid a series sweep in a World Series rematch from last year. The Dodgers outscored the Yankees 26-7 in winning the first 2 games of that World Series rematch, though, including an 18-2 rout on Saturday. Ryan Yarbrough yesterday allowed 1 run, struck out 5 in his 5th start of the year. DJ LeMahieu had his first 4-hit game since 2021. Judge and Shohei Ohtani were hitless after becoming the first reigning MVPs in Major League history to homer in the first inning of a game on Friday. Judge was 0-for-4 with a walk and 2 strikeouts as the only Yankees player to go hitless. Up next for the Yanks, after an off day today, they'll open a 3-game series against the visiting Cleveland Guardians starting tomorrow night from the Bronx. That is your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Make your cash secure again with Secure Cash LLC. Transporting your business's cash safely in armored trucks. SecureCashLLC.com.
WABC News Time 520. U.S. rejecting a Hamas response to the latest ceasefire proposal before them.
In a statement on X, Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff called it totally unacceptable. Witkoff said the militant group should accept the proposal already on the table. Hamas issued a statement affirming its position that talks should aim for a permanent ceasefire and a complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. The back and forth is the latest development in efforts to reach a ceasefire in the war in Gaza, which local officials say has killed over 50,000 Palestinians. I'm Mark Mayfield.
White House going to seek congressional approval for DOGE-related spending cuts in this fiscal year. The Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought says the White House will use a special tool that recommends Congress take back spending it has already approved.
It's a provision that has been rarely used, but it is there, and we intend to use all of these tools. We want Congress to pass it where it's necessary. We also have executive tools.
Budget Director telling CNN State of the Union yesterday it was used for over 200 years, but stopped for some reason in the 1970s, and he says it's led to fraud and abuse.
The very Impoundment Control Act itself allows for a procedure called pocket rescissions later in the year to be able to bank some of these savings without the bill actually being passed.
522. Archaeologists have found a well-preserved loaf of ancient bread in Turkey. I wonder if they'll make French toast out of it.
The artifact was found during an archaeological dig at the Kulyova site located in central Turkey. The loaf was unearthed last September, but the discovery was just recently made public. The bread is believed to be about 5,000 years old and was baked during Turkey's Bronze Age. Researchers say the bread appeared burnt and was found buried under the entrance of a home dating back to 3300 BC. I'm Mark Mayfield.
I bet you nuke it, it'll come back to life. I mean, it usually works with stale bread. 522, California Republican Steve Hilton, who's running for governor in the state, is asking the state legislature to repeal what's called LB 1266 that allows boys to play in girls' sports. This has become a huge deal in California because there was a track meet over the weekend where a male who is now a woman was able to compete.
The legislature should surely see that this unfairness has to end and support our girls, protect their spaces and enact the will of the people who, in poll after poll, clearly show that they think what's going on right now is deeply unfair, just as Gavin Newsom said it's deeply unfair.
This comes as a 16-year-old transgender girl competing this weekend at the state and track field finals near Fresno.
I will file suit against them on the grounds that the law violates the Constitution, and we're going to get it overturned.
Protesters were at this state track meet over the weekend along with someone flying a banner on a plane that read "No Boys in Girls Sports." 523, U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon says New York State is violating the civil rights of a Long Island school by ordering it to retire its Native American mascot. McMahon was joined by Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman at Massapequa High.
We want the state to focus on education, not indoctrination. They are trying to change our culture. They are trying to change the history of our county and our state, and we're not going to stand for it.
Now, that was on Friday, and McMahon over the weekend threatening to pull federal funding, take the issue to the Justice Department if the state doesn't permit the school's chief's mascot and other indigenous mascots to stay. Follows an investigation by the Education Department. Now, here in New York, state education officials announced back in 2020 let's get this right. State education officials announced in 2022 that schools must stop using mascots that depict Native Americans or risk losing state aid. 524. Anyone in default on student loans and receiving Social Security may be in for an unpleasant surprise.
Beginning this month, a share of people's benefits can be garnished if they have defaulted on their student loans. The Trump administration announced on April 21st that the U.S. Department of Education would resume collection activity on the country's $1.6 trillion in student loans. For nearly half a decade, the government did not go after those who'd fallen behind as part of COVID-era policies. According to the government, nearly 500,000 Americans aged 62 and older may be impacted. I'm Rob Martier.
The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, updating a tomato recall in some southeastern states.
The agency says there's a higher possibility that salmonella contamination could lead to serious adverse health consequences or death. The FDA said that the recalled batch is no longer in stores, but the bacteria can survive for weeks in dry environments and for months if frozen. The tomatoes were sold in packages as small as 3 a pack to as large as 25 pounds. They were distributed between April 23rd and 28th in Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina under the H&C Farms label. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Did you notice over the weekend some of that Canadian wildfire smoke moved into the New York and New Jersey area? We'll likely see it again today. Now, they're not too worried yet about air quality, but we've dealt with this in summers past. They have those raging wildfires up in Canada. Health Department had issued an air quality alert for some sensitive groups with the possibility of elevated ozone levels.
The main problem with ozone on getting the word out is that it's really invisible. You can't see ozone when it develops, so it's always good to know, that day is going to be higher in ozone levels.
Now, it was much worse in some Midwestern states over the weekend. In fact, they were advising people to limit prolonged outdoor strenuous activities or shorten the amount of activity time outdoors during peak hours. Well, that was for people who have issues already. So far, we don't have that kind of advisor here in the tri-state area, but you'll see that smoke likely seep in a little bit later today as it did over the weekend.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Monday, June 2nd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. Going to just be a beautiful day. High 73. Tonight and overnight, mostly clear, low 57. And then Tuesday, sunshine, a little bit warmer. High 79. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. 50 and clear in Spring Valley up in Rockland County. 49 and clear in Westfield over in New Jersey. And it's 53 and clear right outside our Midtown studio. Joe may find out in his new house down the Jersey Shore is that electric bills have skyrocketed anywhere from 17 to 20% in New Jersey, depending on the provider. The increase impacts customers of the four main electric companies and providers in New Jersey, PSE&G, JCP&L, Atlantic City Electric, Rockland Electric. So the average household will see an increase of anywhere from $22 to $28 every single bill. The hike was announced earlier this year after the state's annual electricity auction. And as you might guess, people in New Jersey not happy to hear they're going to have to pay more.
Maybe don't turn on the AC till later. Yeah. Not very ideal at the end of the day. But hopefully they eventually push us to renewables and keep the cost low. I don't think that will happen. But yeah, if they're not changing the structure on how they're going to use the type of energy and they're raising the bills, it's not ideal.
Now, I don't know if you've seen this. Seems like a lot of people have solar power. I'm not real clear how much that saves them, but people have gone that way, renewable energy sources such as solar. But they wonder, of course, the people who are still paying good old electric bills, why we weren't given incremental increases as opposed to smacking us all with once with a 20% increase.
So we just purchased solar to offset the increasing energy costs. So in the winter months, it could be upwards of $1,000. Summer months, solar offsets like $40-$50.
I thought it was more than that. So authorities say it is a supply and demand issue. Energy production is just not keeping pace with the demand, and that's why they're raising these prices.
All of my neighbors across the street have solar, so I'm so jealous of them, but we're just not eligible. We live in a dark spot on my side of the street.
So wait till the end of the month. It'll be fun because your bill that's already too high will be even higher.
It's a huge increase. It just makes it difficult for the homeowners and even, the landlords too, because then that's also passed on to tenants.
Yeah, you're right about that. 541 while we're in New Jersey. This took place on Friday. We're getting more details about a Hudson County sheriff's officer who fell several stories from a government building in Jersey City. So this is initially what they thought. The officer apparently tumbled from a 9th floor window at the Hudson County Administration Building to the ground where he died. There were a fair amount of eyewitnesses out who saw it.
Ran over, and then cops came out and started doing CPR, and then they kind of immediately stopped. And then cops came rushing out thinking that something happened down the street and just looked up and just saw two people looking down the window.
Now, so far, they're saying that they believe this was just accidental. Circumstances surrounding the death, including the case manner, they say remain under investigation, but they are saying it's just a tragic accident. Now, the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office was notoriously does a bad job of getting stuff out to the press. It's not telling us a whole lot about this, but there were a lot of eyewitnesses who heard the noise of the glass breaking and unfortunately saw this poor sheriff's officer fall to the ground.
It did sound like something dropped. And then I ran over to the entranceway. There's steps and I did see the body on the ground.
Yeah, my God, what an awful way to start the morning for both sides, obviously, and grieving, and of course, sympathy to the family of that sheriff's officer. 542, while we're in New Jersey, a temporary youth supervision policy was in place at the Bridgewater Commons in the Garden State over the weekend. This was all about preventing one of these pop-up parties that's become very popular, where like on TikTok, people, you'll have like an influencer that will tell all of his followers to go to one mall or spot and then cause a ruckus. And this happened in a number of places. Menlo Park, there was an issue a couple weeks back. Woodbridge Mall, where there were so many kids that showed up, they had to call the cops in, and then the cops did battle with some of these kids. So Bridgewater Commons in Bridgewater got word that this might be happening at their mall over the weekend, and police said, no, we're not going to let this nonsense happen here. So they put a parental and guardian sponsorship in place. I guess there's probably a better way to call it, where you had to come with an adult to the mall if you wanted to get in. And they were actually checking the ID of almost everybody that walked into the mall on Saturday.
About things like this all the time. You never think about them being in your area or affecting you or your family. But yeah, here we are. Just got to be a little bit more on the lookout for things.
Yeah, Middlesex Mall, they were hit by one of these social media-fueled brawls 2 weekends in a row. And in Bridgewater, they said, no, we're not going to let that happen. And it didn't happen because there was just cops everywhere.
I think it's also weird that it's just happening at malls. Like, out of any type of place, you're going to choose to do it at a mall with, like, a lot of age groups. So, like, I think it's just something that also puts more people in danger. But I think checking in is fine, but it's also weird.
Now, in Bridgewater, they put a mobile command center surrounded by police cars from area departments in the mall's parking lot, gave warning of what was expected to be inside. They said, hey, if you're walking in, there's a good chance you'll be greeted by some security officers who will ask people for their identification. Now, minors who walked into this mall over the weekend, they were given wristbands.
Seems like whatever was planned was stopped. It's not really a sustainable way to maintain safety in public places, but for today, it's a safe day to be at the mall.
Yeah, so several security stations were set up throughout the mall, and nothing happened. So whatever was planned did not work. All right, in a moment, we're going to hear from a woman on Long Island who is recalling a creepy encounter she had with an alleged serial killer. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first, 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. And here's Justin Allen.
Thank you, Noam. And we'll start here on the hardwood Saturday night at the Garden. The Knicks season coming to an end in the form of a 125-108 loss to the Indiana Pacers in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, giving Indiana the 4-2 series win and a ticket to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2000. It's just the second time in Indiana's franchise history that they'll play for the championship. Pascal Siakam won the Larry Bird Trophy as the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. OG Anunoby led the Knicks with 24 points. Karl Anthony Towns had 22 points and 14 rebounds, while Jalen Brunson added 19 points as the Pacers' relentless ball pressure forced New York into 17 turnovers. And the Knicks, they're headed home again, courtesy of the Pacers. Their stars just didn't show up on Saturday. New York still hasn't played in the finals since 1999. Indiana will meet the Oklahoma City Thunder in the finals, with the series set to begin Thursday night in Oklahoma City. And Sidney Rosenberg made a good point, Noam Layden, due to your argument that not a lot of people are going to be watching this series. You got a lot of degenerate sports gamblers out there that are going to be putting money
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they'll watch.
Final.
They'll just put money on it.
Yeah, but what's the point of putting money on it if you're not going to watch the game? You're going to sit there and just hope and pray that your bet hits?
I guarantee you the ratings will be bad.
Okay. Well, we'll check on that with you later on this week, all right, Omar?
Yeah.
Out on the diamond in Queens, the Mets beat the Colorado Rockies 5-3 at home yesterday to complete the 3-game series sweep of the MLB's worst team. Clay Holmes registered the win for New York, throwing 7 innings of 3 hit balls, surrendering 3 earned runs, and punching out 3 Rockies along the way. Francisco Lindor launched his 13th home run of the season in the form of a 5th-inning solo shot after Pete Alonso sent his 12th of the year into the seats with a solo shot in the 4th, all before Juan Soto hit his 2nd dinger in as many days, an 8th-inning solo shot that sealed the win for the Mets. Up next for New York, they'll travel west to meet the Dodgers in Los Angeles tonight for the opener of a 4-game series. Paul Blackburn will get the start in what will be a 10:10 p.m. first pitch from L.A. Speaking of those Dodgers, the Yankees salvaged their series finale against L.A. last night, a 7-3 win to avoid a series sweep in a World Series rematch from last year. Ryan Yarbrough limited baseball's best offense to 4 4 hits over 6 innings. Ben Rice hit a tie-breaking 2-run homer, and the Yankees defeated the Dodgers to avoid getting swept for the first time this season. The Dodgers outscored the Yankees 26-7, though, and winning the first 2 games of this World Series rematch, including an 18-2 rout on Saturday. Yarborough allowed 1 run and struck out 5 in his 5th start of the year. DJ LeMahieu had his first 4-hit game since 2021. Judge and Shohei Ohtani were hitless after becoming the first reigning MVPs in Major League history to homer in the first inning of a game on Friday. Judge was 0-for-4 with a walk and 2 strikeouts as the only Yankees player to go hitless last night. Up next for the Yanks, after an off day today, they'll open a 3-game series against the visiting Cleveland Guardians starting tomorrow night from the Bronx. That is your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 550. A woman from Long Island recalling a creepy encounter with an alleged serial killer.
It started as a normal ride home on the Long Island Railroad when Kaylin Morales came face-to-face with the man suspected of killing 7 women. Morales tells the New York Post that Rex Hewerman sat right next to her.
So I moved my legs from being up just to make myself more comfortable. And he says, you don't have to move your pretty legs. I won't bother you. So then I was already uncomfortable by the fact of him saying that and just sitting down when he could have sat anywhere else.
2 weeks later, news of Hewerman's arrest came. Morales was interviewed by a detective after submitting her videos to Suffolk County Crime Stoppers. Hewerman is set to return to court on June 17th. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 551. Let's bring it back here into the city. Investigators looking in to find the cause of a fire at an apartment building in Harlem that left 2 people seriously hurt.
Fire officials say it happened at about 4:30 a.m. inside a 3rd-floor apartment on West 135th Street. The fire damaged at least 24 apartments. Residents had to go down a fire escape to get out. 2 of the 6 people hurt have serious injuries. Meantime, the Red Cross is helping out 19 people, including 11 children. I'm Lisa Salvati.
Some good news for Newark Airport. They're going to reopen a closed runway that has contributed to the weeks of delays and chaos at the airport. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy going to lead a news conference from the airport this morning to mark the runway's reopening. It's runway 4L22R. Why I gave you that piece of information, I do not know, but it's 11,000 feet long. It's been going under this planned rehabilitation. Now, when they decided to do this, they didn't know that all hell would break loose at the airport, that there would then be issues with the radar, issues with air traffic controllers. So they've slowed down the amount of flights coming in and out of Newark to deal with all of that. And flyers over the weekend say it hasn't been bad. Like planes have been leaving and coming in mostly on time.
We've been traveling in and out all year, so we knew about the pothole, which is getting to school, and a lot of delays of the runways and stuff. So I was a little bit worried, but I have heard that it's been fine now.
And Sean Duffy says now they're working on getting these air traffic controllers in place. They need to be trained. They're already seasoned air traffic controllers, but they have to be trained on the airspace that is Newark, and apparently that takes a couple months or so. And they're fixing everything that's wrong with the radar. They brought Verizon in to lay down some cable. So it looks like things are going to get better. And now with this new runway open, some more flights will be allowed to fly in and out of the airport.
Just kind of checking up all the media updates about the situation at Newark. And I was getting more and more confirmed in the situation that it's getting back to normal.
Yeah, so for the most part, not a lot of complaints, at least from Newark, for the first time in a long time over the weekend from those flyers there. 553 out to Long Island. Dash cam footage shows a person wearing a mask and a hood going up to a Tesla that was parked in a driveway in West Hempstead and just destroying the thing, smashing the windshield with a golf club, and then just running away. This happened about 1 a.m. On Saturday, and the poor guy who owns this car, he's like, I just have a Tesla. I'm not making a political statement. He walks out to find that it's been vandalized.
To my surprise, I found 2 huge holes in my windshield. Not to steal something, not to see if something else was around or anything else. Their purpose was to smash my car.
And police say it's clearly some form of political violence because no other cars in the neighborhood were damaged. Nothing was stolen from this guy's car, so it was just some creep who I guess is mad at Elon Musk, but taking it out on a guy who just bought one of his cars.
The insurance, they'll cover it. They probably won't keep me, or they'll probably raise my rates to the point where I'll scream uncle for whatever political reason or no political reason they have. I have to pay for it.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll catch this jerk, because what's good about these Teslas is they have cameras everywhere, and they got footage of this guy. Now the question is, will cops be able to hunt him down? 5:54. Let's go up to the Hudson Valley. Just an awful story over the weekend. Flames gutted a home, decimated a family in Goshen. This was late Saturday night. Firefighters got word that there was a blaze in a two-family home on Pulaski Highway. A mother and her two children who live upstairs in the house, they were able to get out, but the family living on the ground floor unfortunately did not. It was a dad, 40 years old, and his two sons, 12 and 17. They were killed in the fire. Neighbors say the kids were both nonverbal and had autism. Now, whether that had anything to do with them getting out of the house, we just don't know.
When I was walking up, I saw them performing CPR on the father. They had a lot of behavioral issues, but he took really good care of those boys. He was a good father to them. It's very sad.
Yeah, neighbors say they took care of the family upstairs as they watched the awful stuff going on downstairs.
As soon as they started to smell the smoke, they left. And then I guess they called right away. So that's why everything was pretty prompt. They just went through a recent tragedy. So it's really hard on that family. They just lost their father.
Yeah, so far, fire authorities have no idea what started that blaze in Goshen over the weekend. People online are being duped by an AI-generated viral video.
Users were left stunned when all they wanted to know was the name of a kangaroo that stole their hearts. However, it turns out the kangaroo doesn't even exist. The video in question shows a small and reserved marsupial holding a boarding pass at a plane door with a flight attendant and a woman arguing. The viral video gained even more traction when internet sleuths pointed out the video was not real and came from an Instagram account that specializes in AI-generated content. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
I saw that video. Apparently, I was duped by it, too, because I thought it was legit, but Lizzie's telling us it is not.
Thanks for listening to the News Hour with Noam Laden. You can hear the News Hour with Noam Laden weekday mornings at 5 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.